The Navy wants to test private water wells near NAS Jax, but the community has yet to respond. Behind the Navy's request is the recent test results of 17 shallow wells on the base. High levels of toxic chemicals from firefighting foam was found in all 17 wells. One of them was 19,000 times higher than the EPA recommended level. NAS Jax Command says it does not affect the drinking water supply on the base, which is city water, but they want to know if the contaminants may have spread to the adjacent communities to the north and south of the base. On your side's Ken Amaro, who first reported this story, is live in the Timaquana neighborhood, which is one of the areas of concern. Ken.
That's correct, Anthony. I'm dead center in one of those zones. In fact, the Navy base is in that direction. The concern is the groundwater flowing in this direction. Now, there's no evidence of it being here as yet. In fact, most of these homes are on public utility, but as you stated, the Navy is concerned about private wells. Now, I spoke with Kathy Finn today. Kathy Finn used to live in this neighborhood, and she was diagnosed with cancer. She's a survivor, but what happened is after she moved out, the person who bought her home also was diagnosed with cancer. Coincidental, Kathy and many of the neighbors have been suspicious about what's coming from the base a long time, and they're looking for answers.
We need this done. I mean, the neighborhood needs to know what's coming off of these fields.
Unfortunately, no one's responded as yet. What's the message to those who should be responding?
Do the right thing. Do the right thing. The Navy, when they built this, did not know what they know now. So now that you know, then you should be doing something.
So the Navy has identified 24 private wells and says that 9 of those are being used for irrigation. They would like to hear from the 15 other property well owners so that the wells can be tested. And the Navy is planning a meeting on August the 16th at the Marriott on Wells Road. For anyone who is interested, they can come and hear what the Navy has to say and get their fears and concerns answered. Back to you.